I'm going to present my piece of design research and give you show you the film, which is about 4 minutes long. And as I show it, it's a piece of research which is in film form, and in parallel I've been writing a piece about the same problem. So I'm going to show you the film and read what is sort of the introduction to the piece at the same time. And that's about 4 minutes, and then that'll give me about 10 minutes to explain myself. Okay? So, hopefully you can see it. Hopefully it works. There is a common sense among constructors, fabricators, engineers and designers that make buildings that architecture is assembled in the imagination before it is built on site. Amongst these actors within the space of architectural production, one might hear it said that a job architect has the building in their head, or that a site manager has eaten the building. So thorough is their grasp of the drawings and specifications of the project. These phrases suggest that the project fully inhabits the mnemonic imagination of these constructors and designers. And while committing something as complex as a construction project to memory would seem a remarkable feat, central actors in this process of construction appear to do so. Here, we propose that the emerging future building is integral to the creation of the memory systems constructors and designers use in their production of that building. We propose that actors within the space of production mentally build memory palaces of their projects, using the future architects they're designing as a spatial structure for the memory system of the project itself. Here, the future architectural space and construction detail locates and rehearses the history of the building's assembly. The final relationships between materials defined within this palace describe a process of decision-making that includes both technical reasoning and reasons of contingency. Place, history, and geography are fixed within this memory palace, often expressed in the slang terminology for materials or processes. The space of architectural production is a memory palace built within the shared imagination of those that collaborate on a construction project. In this palace, building work is foreshadowed by an imaginary architecture that both predicts the future physical construction and is also made superfluous by this construction work as it comes to be. However, these memory palaces of production remain lodged in the mnemonic imagination of the constructors and designers that planned and executed the detail of construction. And these palaces are accessed by the details themselves, which act as a doorway into this memory system for the process of building. During construction, both the memory palace and the building it predicts experience construction as a process of accumulating meaning. The physical project gains clarity of meaning as it is closed up, and the construction is concealed. The memory palace adds yet more discursive layers as the process of construction uncovers and resolves problems. These accumulations occur until the contractual point of practical completion, which can be seen as conferring the contradictory definitions of status on these various architectural systems. The beginning of a public life for the finished architectural artefact, the end of the private need for a memory palace, and the beginning of its ruination. The closing up of a building masks the memory palace that has brought it into being, stifle their use, and these palaces of transitory architectural meaning atrophy and die. This model of building information as memory palace is perhaps provocative. It suggests that buildings are built by the constructors in a process of mnemonic reverie that the construction industry has yet to come to appreciate. That's the film. And you probably guessed that the piece is about trying to explore an idea about memory. And the two images on the right are, I suppose, kind of maybe a Western tradition of the relationship between architecture and memory. They talk about memory as ideas memorialised in a finished form, in a built form. The middle photograph shows a classical and kind of medieval ideal of memory sort of imprinted into architecture, and then something that can be kind of reconstructed by reading that kind of finished form. And then the right-hand image is a kind of diagram or three diagrams by the architectural theorist Geoffrey Kipnis, which are called late 20th century masterpieces of architectural theory. And it's the theories of Rossi, John Haydock, and Peter Eisenman. Rossi being the use of kind of architectural form as memories that are kind of resistant to change. Haydock is someone who's using kind of memorial forms to disrupt the contemporary environment and kind of make them strange, making memories within that environment. And Eisenman is someone, arguably, who's kind of distressing memory or taking distressed memories. And there's also, perhaps between those two pictures, a relationship in terms of how memory has started to be thought about. The one on the right-hand side, the kind of three late 20th century masterpieces of theory, kind of sit around the point that another commentator I'm reading has been called the memory boom, when kind of memory becomes this very important sort of intellectual field. I'm not interested in any of that. Or kind of my interest in that is slightly different. I'm interested, if you like, in what happens before those forms. What happens architecturally, in the architectural activity that happens during the construction of the building, and that comes from my own experience as a site architect. So I sort of started this idea, or this hypothesis, that you could think about the construction site as a memory palace and a form of architectural activity that happens before the construction of the building itself, and almost kind of parallels the construction of the building. And I could write about that, but I sort of felt I'm not. Is this really something that I can kind of articulate in writing? And so the film comes down to that question: how can I sort of record that sort of palette? So it's about memory and the operation of memory amongst everyone that contributes to a project before it becomes a finalised object. And there's a very nice quote which kind of relates to that in David Liontal's Passing Foreign Country. He quotes Harold Pinter, the playwright, saying that. And I think it's very nice to kind of position that quote next to a statement about practical completion, which is the ultimate point where everyone tries to forget what's been going on. So I wanted to kind of test whether I could still find these memory palaces in my own work. And the film that you've just seen is one of those tests. So I looked at something in which I developed a memory palace for in an architectural space of production, a space within which the building was being developed 15 years ago, and wanted to see whether a kind of typical detail from that could be something which could unlock a memory process for me, and simply kind of perform that detail. And the kind of narrative that you saw from that comes out of that is really that exploration. But the film sort of moved on from that, because I wanted the film to work in terms of trying to help me define the position of that memory palace within the, I suppose, the timeline of the building. So, collaborating with someone who's much better at films than me, Steve Brown, we reversed the film, and the idea is that it starts at practical completion, and then this starts to unravel. And then I went through the film from my kind of reading to try and position the type of memory that was occurring at each point. And that was an interesting separate process for me, because I thought the two outputs, if you like, were the film and the text, but the directions, effectively, that I was kind of constructing to help Steve edit the film and to kind of put the notations on it, became a sort of separate piece in their own right. So, to conclude, I think I'm just about out of time. The next steps are a couple of next steps, really. I can see within that particular film, the next thing I'd like to do is start to analyse the connections between these memory forms and how they're being orchestrated or organised, or help organise the kind of architecture that is being drawn and remembered. And then something that Matt made as a very good point was to make some more films, but to do that perhaps with other constructors and designers, which then leads to a very important question about something which Rachel was talking about, how this then becomes a method by which I can work with others. So I need to kind of work on the method next, and I'm interested in that method perhaps connecting to kind of methodologies of kind of oral history, because I think that will be the connection that I can make, and that's why I'm
Brilliant. So again, we could probably take a question for James.
James, did you find during the process that you were not only considering memories about the construction and design of what, how the building emerged, but also memories of how it changed during the design process, and how the building that you wanted it to be, as opposed to the building that it ended up being, if there was a difference, which often is.
I think very definitely so, and I think that's part of the point, is that it's a transitory architecture which is shared and authored by many, not by one person. So the whole kind of, and that being a very kind of contingent process, so that the details unlock this kind of massive sprawling story. With the point, one of the points being that quite often people don't want to remember all that, but there's a kind of richness in that, which is, and the fact that that richness is articulated in the construction of the building, the development of that piece of architecture. So that in a way, that's what I'm trying to recover, because these memory palaces are shared, and well, I'm arguing these memory palaces are partly shared, partly collaborative, partly individual, but they richer, and which is why that final the quote at the front of the film is more architectural activity than transitory architectural activity than ends up in the building.
Do you intend to go back and talk to other members of the design team?
Probably not on that building. You'll notice that the way in which I put the kind of that there are some total recall moments which are anonymising sort of making it safer. So probably not that, but I think that's another shift that's got to occur, because there's a thing where I'm very conscious of it, is it me making decisions about the character of memory is because I'm thinking about my understanding of it, and that's probably the methodological shift I need to kind of stick through. And I think it'd be really interesting to do it for a number of people on a shared building, including fabricators, people who know it from totally different stories and kind of viewpoints.